Bart, go.
Well, to quote Nancy Pelosi, it is not a good morning. This has been a debacle from the U.S. men's national team, but I do want to just say from the start, last night in and of itself was not a terrible match from this men's national team. They played fairly well. They played, up to the level that we've seen them. They did not surpass the level that we've seen them play. They did not certainly find something within themselves to gut out even a result against Uruguay. But the real damage is the overall collective psyche and fragileness that this team came into this tournament with for some reason. A tournament that is not for the weak, mentally or physically. And you're now left with legitimate existential questions, as oftentimes you see after a failure like this, because that's the thing. This is a failure. And not making it out of the group, despite the circumstances that Greg will ultimately come to call for his defense when he is on the trial stand, presumably, hopefully last night and hopefully today. But at the end of the day, getting grouped in a tournament you host is a failure. And it's unacceptable for a program that wants to be better than where it is, and a program that wants to be some sort of a big player on the international stage. Last night, again, was not the worst performance we've seen from this men's national team. It certainly was a fairly solid one. But as always, it seems this team is unable to lift itself above more than just a collection of talented players and find itself as a formidable team that can charge through a tournament and make other teams pay for mistakes. That's just where we're at. We can talk more details, but it's frustrating to feel like we're in a Kuva moment. Not even, 6 years removed from that moment?
Mm-hmm. Soccer for USPod's Bart Keeler hanging out with us this morning to bat leadoff after what happened last night. Jarrett has made this point about, frankly, the last two matches, that the Timothy Weah red impacted not only the match at Mercedes-Benz, but also impacted this one with his absence and forced the United States to do things and come out in an 11 that they were not familiar with, or however you want to phrase it. That the Timothy Weah knock-on effects impacted more than just the immediate that we saw at Mercedes-Benz.
Right, and I think I'll say I agree and disagree with Jarrett, but I agree on the whole that, yes, that obviously changed how you had to play this match against Uruguay. But I think it wasn't so much a lineup thing as much as it became a must-win game.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is the main change here. It's not that you didn't have Tim Weah. It's that you then now had to win this game.
Yeah.
A game that, again, you did not play poorly. You played Uruguay pretty well, and despite multiple just chaotic and egregiously incorrect referee decisions, you may have gotten a draw out of this game, which would have been a perfectly acceptable result in any other measure.
Mm-hmm.
But because, to Jarrett's point, of that red card that affected you within the Panama game, the circumstances of this game became different. So yes, Tim Weah's absence was felt last night. I did think Gio Reyna was fairly effective, but it does leave you with not having as many moves to play, and it did leave you with needing a result. And even the Panama result that they got, if you go out and win this game, you're still through. Panama would not have made up the goal differential had you won the game.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end of the day, you go out and you lose because this team is incapable of punching above its weight. It's incapable of rising to a level above where they're at. especially against teams that are better than them. And to Jarrett's point, when you are missing one of your locked-in starting players, it will be harder to do that.
Tom is asking the philosophical.
Yeah, it's a fair question, Tom.
Yeah,
sorry.
No,
put it on that screen.
Yeah. Tom's asking if you need to clean house at the top in addition to manager, in your opinion, or are you too close?
The answer is no, because one, you're talking about positions in president and CEO that, while the most important thing is the U.S. men's and women's national teams coaching and success, that's not the only thing that they're responsible for. Now, Matt Crocker needs to be part of this evaluation. Granted, he just brought in arguably the best women's coach available. So we do have to at least, I think, give him another chance to get it right on the men's side. You do need to have Cindy and JT going to, whomever Daddy Moneybags is, Daddy Warbucks, to ask for the buyout money now. I mean, we are at that. We need some boosters, got to buy out Jimbo's contract here. And
you had to bring up Jimbo, didn't you?
Well,
mm-hmm.
He's supposedly an offensive genius, and that's what Greg wanted us to be. But look, you do need to put pressure on all of them. I think that's fair. I think pressure to change things is fair. But the reality is they don't control a lot of the things that you think they control, but they also control a lot of things that you don't realize they control. And they're also beholden to, similar to Don Garber as MLS commissioner, they are beholden to the stakeholders that they serve. And I don't think people also realize that this is not just Cindy and JT and even Matt to an extent going out and do what they please. They are ultimately at the service of the stakeholders, which are the local state soccer associations and all those people that make that up.
Jarrett's now
manager change needs to happen.
Right.
That is fair.
Jarrett is now in, and Jarrett, I led off after Bart's opening statement with your discussion about the knock-on effects with Timothy Weah and how that impacted you not only once but twice. What is on your mind, top of mind this morning, as Bart is now in for bat and leadoff this morning for obvious reasons?
It's like, I don't know what you do now. I know we talked about, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that? Like, does U.S. soccer actually do that? I think you have to. You can't get grouped in a tournament on your home soil.
In a group that you should have handled better than you did, even if the Weah knock-on effects are discussed as we have already.
And you have to discuss them, and that's the thing is, like, you can discuss them,
mm-hmm.
while also acknowledging that there were other mistakes made.
Yeah,
there were mistakes made in that game. Like, you go up 1-0, up down a man, and you immediately give up a goal. And then
Jarrett, my question to you, if I can jump in, is because we just dealt with something. I feel like we're getting into the Berhalter discussion. It's just we're launching into it, so I'm sorry. We dealt with this here locally, I think, with the Pineda situation, where granted, I don't think Greg Berhalter is the nicest person and certainly not as generous and actually good as Gonzalo Pineda is. No offense to Greg, but I think we all agree that Gonzalo was an incredible human.
Gonzalo salt to the earth, dude.
And it seemed very much like the players enjoyed Gonzalo, respected Gonzalo as a person.
And we have that with, from what I understand, the post match that we heard from Matt Turner and others last night.
These players respect Greg. They like playing for Greg. But Jarrett, my question is, at some point, liking the coach and a coach who's building a good culture, if you want to call it that, which that's even debatable at this point, if it's not resulting in wins, if it's not a culture of what I felt the problem with Atlanta United was, and what I think the problem is with this men's national team, is a culture of accountability and a culture of responsibility. At some point, it becomes less on the players, and you have to look at the person who's leading the whole charge.
No, I agree. I'm telling you, I'm personally in the camp that I think you have to make a move.
Yeah.
I think you have to make a change. Really lowers kick up. Sure, why not? It's just that kind of day. I think you're in a category to make a change. Because you can't have this failure. And also, I think if you do it now, you give yourself plenty of time going into the World Cup. But if you wait, you get into a situation where you don't have as much time. Then it becomes a game of like bantering around names. I'll give you one name that we talked about for Atlanta that I would not be opposed to seeing for the U.S. national team, just for the fact that he might scare the living hell out of them, and might scare the living hell out of everybody, is Giovanni Savarese.
Yeah.
Took Portland to 2 MLS Cups. Won championships with the Cosmos back in the day. Maybe a bit more pragmatic tactically, but
I think we need that, Jarrett. I think we need more of a pragmatic tactician.
I think you need balls too, man. And I don't. There are times there are times with this group I feel like you don't have that, Bart. Last night necessarily wasn't that one of those times. I thought they threw punch. I was impressed with the way they threw punches with Uruguay.
Yeah.
And we're having a different conversation. If Tim Weah doesn't punch somebody in the back of the head, and you don't drop points, and you straight up lose to Panama. If you do your job and you beat Panama, and then, as we talked about before the tournament, you beat the first two teams, Uruguay doesn't matter, and you can judge it on its own merits. I think it was your post I saw last night, Bart. It was like, in a different world, like in a friendly environment, we're looking at this Uruguay game very differently. But because of the circumstances, wasn't good enough. And you were not putting the ball in the back of the net last night. And some of that I credit to Uruguay, because they're ballsy, they're gutsy, they are relentless defensively. I was really impressed with Uruguay. I told Jason last night, I want to see them play Brazil, because I want to see an Uruguayan beat a Brazilian to death with another Brazilian, because I think they might do that. The way they'll throw themselves in front of every single half attempt on goal. I think you brought up plenty of fight last night. Won't even get into the reffing down here aspect of it.
That's next.
That's fine, and that's fine. But I think it's a large. That's a fine. That we'll get into it, because it's kind of funny on some of it, and I do value Bart's opinion on a lot of it. But yeah, man, it's like in a different world. It's a different conversation with how you approached Uruguay. I thought you put up a pretty damn good fight. The goal.
Well, and that's where the problem in live, Jarrett, is because you lost to Panama.
I agreed 100%.
I mean,
no, I agree with you 100%. It's the whole fulcrum for me is going to come back to Weah being dumb and selfish for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And because then you're in a situation where you had to be perfect against Panama, and you were not perfect against Panama. And I don't care if Bolivia took a 1-1 draw against Panama in the middle of that game. Where did you really expect? Did you really expect Panama to drop points to Bolivia? It'd be hilarious. It'd be great if you could have backdoored in. But last night was always a game for me. You needed to go beat Uruguay. You put yourself in a bad situation. You cannot rely on others in that situation. You needed to go beat Uruguay. I thought you did everything but put the ball in the back of the net. You just didn't have the finishing. You didn't have somebody to take advantage of the moment, and you didn't have Uruguay slip up like you needed them to. And when you're in a bad situation and you need things to go your way, When they don't, it gets magnified, man. But you got enough time now, and after this, you have all the reason and the runway in the world to go look at making a change for the U.S. national team. I think you do that.
All right, Bart, here we go. Reffing down here. And
or lack of reffing down here.
That is also true.
Reffing was a theoretical construct.
Before we get into this, I think we all agree the reffing. I'm not absolving what happened because of the refereeing.
No.
I do want to say that this is one of the few times I have actually seen refereeing actually impact a game.
Yeah.
Because he was just bad.
Yeah. And what we're doing this on purpose. It is a separate issue that we're putting to the side. It's the game element we wanted to have as one aspect of this.
Yeah, it's not why the U.S. got eliminated.
No.
The U.S. dug their own grave.
Yeah, U.S. did their own ish.
This is a separate, amazing conversation because this was like there were moments watching this that I was in awe.
Yep.
Some of the decisions that were made.
And it's not a good awe. Kevin Ortega of Peru was the man in the middle. It was mainly a Peruvian crew last night. And it was his first time in the middle for a match of this import in the Copa. He has a very limited competition CV. But Kevin Ortega was in the middle, and he turned it into your own choose your adventure coloring book last night at points when it came to being a guy with a whistle, Bart.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to address a couple of things. And the first is that, one, just because he hasn't refereed big games before, and remember, this is just a group stage match. Like, at the end of the day, this was just a group. Now, yes, we know that it was important, but this was just a group stage match.
Mm-hmm.
That said, and we deal with this at the grassroots level even, you have to at some point let these referees referee big matches because you can't keep having the top referees referee big matches until they retire. You do have to give referees below them chances. And a group stage match is an appropriate time, even against the U.S. and Uruguay, which, looking on paper, were the two best teams in this group. It's not bad that you let an inexperienced referee take control of this match. I think the problem is that clearly this referee never did anything to show that he could possibly referee a match like this. How valid are the reports that, he took jerseys from Boca in, a Libertadores match? I don't know. I'm not a reporter in South America, but things like that and the rest of the way he managed this game do call into question how he could have even been evaluated to the level for a match like this.
Point number one. Point number two. Go ahead, Jared.
No, it's the way that teams are able to take advantage of an inexperienced ref. Like, I don't know if this is your point number two, and I apologize if it is. The yellow card / advantage play, like. I would imagine Bart, but a more experienced ref in calling that foul, stopping play, calling that foul, yellow cards out. when Uruguay puts the ball down and tries to go quickly, blowing the whistle 2-3 times, say no, come back here. I didn't say you could go yet.
100%. That is what you would have done. Yes. And
they took advantage of an inexperienced ref who was not up for that moment, and not just like on the calls themselves, like yellow card. I'm fine with the yellow card. All there is a yellow card tackle. You're breaking up a transition moment, but you can't let the players dictate.
You literally can't. It is impermissible by the laws of the game. Law 12. Well, we're getting into it, John. Sorry.
Here we go.
Law 12. Fouls and misconduct. You have 12.3 disciplinary action. You can go to the IFAB and look at this yourself, but you have a whole point in here. It says delaying the restart of play to show a card. Quote, once the referee has decided to caution or send off a player, play must not be restarted until the sanction has been administered. Now, there is a conditional clause here, comma, unless the non-offending team takes a quick free kick, has a clear goal-scoring opportunity, and the referee has not started the disciplinary sanction procedure. Now that disciplinary sanction procedure is pulling out the yellow card, because what you have to do is show the yellow card, record it, and have as Dr. Joe Macknick pointed out last night, have a ceremonial restart. So had he called a foul and maybe the yellow card and the conversation with the player, which is the other thing, this is why you have a stoppage of play, is because you are signaling not just to the player but to everyone this is unacceptable. So you are administering the discipline to the player, a defender in this case, and you let Uruguay continue to play. That is clearly not in line with what the laws of the game want you to do. And again, that is not just inexperience. That's horrific refereeing. And I'm going to say it, and I'm sorry because I'm going to get a little bit of my U.S. men's national team feels here. But
you're giving us the explicit rating in the first half hour?
Yeah, it's not explicit. I'm just saying that I think there needs to be legitimate questions about the refereeing performances that the U.S. men's national team received in this tournament.
Okay.
Because they were horrific. I mean, they were, it felt intentionally horrific. And I know that's the only time I'm going to say it in this conversation, but it was so bad.
Yeah. Nick has joined us this morning as we've gotten into reffing down here and discussing Kevin Ortega and rewinding back to Ivan Bart. Bart's here for like another 2 minutes before he gets in trouble with the real world, since he started riffing, of course. Nick, what's on your mind? We talked about Timothy Weah. We've gotten into reffing down here. What's on your mind with Bart before we send Bart back into the real world and keep our conversation going?
This was just an avalanche. It was an avalanche started by one small thing, two small things that turned into 50 small things that ended up taking everything sideways. So the officiating was a problem. Weah deciding to go, off the grid and go UFC caused a problem. And then Greg Berhalter, being Greg Berhalter, I think was the thing that finally broke everything loose. So with that, I yield my time back to Bart to close things out because I don't want to go on too long.
On the flip side, we'll let you keep going, Nick. Bart, last thoughts from you before you head back into the real world.
The refereeing this tournament for the U.S. was bad. I think it's okay to say that. It is not the reason why you are no longer in this tournament. And there were 35 people involved with this team getting in this camp to get this team from, the least out of the group. That's all you wanted out of this. That was the most minimal expectations. And finally, achieving the minimum caught up to Greg Berhalter. And it seems like that seems to be how he coaches, period. And I know we love to talk about that one time he happened to take Columbus to the MLS Cup final. The man has done nothing of import since then. Beating an absolute trash Mexican program at this point in time is not a positive on the resume for me. I mean, it's just congratulations. It's the one good team you can beat. They're not that good. He continually gets outclassed by other coaches. The Panama coach has had his number since he came here. John Herdman had his number.
Ooh.
You can't change the players. That is the reality. You cannot. This is a national team situation. You cannot just find new players. You can hopefully maybe uncover some other new players. You cannot. Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Chris Richards, Matt Turner. Those are the best we've got. It's not like we have magically unearthed. We're not going to magically unearth other players who are somehow better. The reality is, at the national team level, you need a coach who knows how to make the best of his players and not a fantasy philosophy and system that have never proven to actually been either A, implemented, or B, worked. And I'm sorry, but the man has to go, and he has done nothing in his defense to prove that he should stay. And the fact that he was rehired in the first place was already a problem. And the fact that there's not confidence in the organization that they will take the appropriate measures to make sure this team is in the best position to capitalize on the moment in 2026 is incredibly disheartening. And I'm hopeful that at some point today we get a statement from US Soccer saying he's done, because I don't know how much longer this review process needs to happen, and I'm really sorry about it. But at some point you have to go, hey, he's not getting the job done. You got to go. Now, there are other things you need to review, but the homeboy right there, that's the one that needs to absolutely be changed, and his whole coaching staff, because they have failed at every turn.
Bart Keeler at Bartimus Prime 19 on the Soccer for US POD. He Irish goodbye us.